Have we lost our planet Earth to a faction of greedy unevolved tyrannical extraterrestrials? The connection between early reports of alien craft propulsion systems using tube-like toruses, Lockheed-Martin Skunkworks' new promise of a portable fusion energy source, the toroidal Tokamak, and frightening aspects of planetary geoengineering with chemtrails that weaken our immune systems and the EMRs used with HAARP's ionospheric heaters, will become, I hope, obvious after reading this. Timothy Good has written one of the best books regarding the ET question with his 2013 Earth, an Alien Enterprise / The Shocking Truth Behind the Greatest Cover-Up in Human History. In the chapter entitled Technology Transfer, Part 2, Chapter 15, Good describes an incident at the Lockheed-Martin Skunkworks near Palmdale, CA in 1988. Inside the big hangar were highly classified exotic aircraft, including 3 fully functional flying saucers, which were referred to as Alien Reproduction Vehicles, ARV. One of the craft had also been seen in 1973 by a man who had been a crew chief at Edwards Air Force Base, who described the ARV's propulsion thus. Inside this big vacuum chamber, inside the secondary coils of the Tesla coils, there is a mercury vapor that will conduct electricity. We may conclude that the craft found in the Lockheed Martin hangar was being back-engineered for human ARVs. Timothy Good reports on alleged facilities located in the foothills of the Tehachapi Mountains run by Lockheed Martin, Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, Northrop Grumman. It has always struck me as remarkable that planet Earth's technology advanced exponentially after the atom bomb and Roswell, in other words, after the distorting effects of nuclear radiation sent a message out into space warning other life forms that humans were getting dangerous. Again, Timothy Good writes about information regarding Lockheed Martin and Northrop, 2 aerospace companies that had allegedly established underground plants inside the Tehachapi Mountains. The funding is said to have been black budget and involved the production of high-tech flying machines back-engineered from the ETS called the Greys. Timothy Good describes the alien craft's propulsion systems as interacting with the magnetic fields existing throughout space and the celestial bodies. Most interesting is this. Enormously powerful electrical charges were generated in tube-like toruses ranging around the insides of the hulls. The torus were superconductors, non-resistant to electric current. Magnets inside the tubes converted the current to plasma jets. The buildup of magnetic fields around the ships, when their propulsion systems powered up, sometimes made them glow. Thus far we have alleged evidence of Lockheed Martin Skunkworks possessing alien craft, using those craft to back-engineer human versions, the ARVs, and the knowledge of plasma superconducting toruses involved in propulsion systems. Is it mere coincidence that Lockheed Martin recently announced the development of a torus-shaped device that produces unlimited amounts of energy using plasma? Tokamak, a donut-shaped torus device. An October 2014 report from Technology Review describes Lockheed Martin's announcement that it had secretly developed a promising design for a compact nuclear fusion reactor has encountered skepticism over the basic feasibility of its approach. Tom McGuire is the project lead of the Lockheed effort to develop the reactor at the company's Skunkworks in Palmdale, California. The article says that no data has yet been released after having done 200 firings with plasma. However, McGuire said of the plasma, "It looks like it's doing what it's supposed to do." He added that with research partners Lockheed could develop a completed prototype within 5 years and a commercial application within a decade. The company is even talking about how fusion reactors could one day power ships and planes. McGuire said that the company has come up with a compact design, called a high-beta fusion reactor, based on principles of so-called magnetic mirror confinement. This approach tries to contain plasma by reflecting particles from high-density magnetic fields to low-density ones. The challenge is to confine hydrogen plasma at conditions under which the hydrogen nuclei fuse together at levels that release a useful amount of energy. Back to Timothy Good regarding the ET Greys technology. Propulsion was also said to involve plasma. Indeed, it has been described as a plasma-propelled magneto-hydrodynamic vehicle. A superconductor torus of hot plasma circled the horizontal rim of the inner and out hulls, generating a powerful propulsion field that interacted with Earth's ambient magnetic field, propelling the craft. I don't think it takes a rocket scientist to connect these two stories. Timothy Good's reports on ET plasma propulsion and Lockheed Martin's announcement of an impending release of a brand new fusion reactor plasma technology. Since the projected cost of only one of these Tokamak research efforts is $50 billion, I would suppose there is more than skepticism involved. Perhaps the oil cartel will morph into the Tokamak plasma torus cartel. They are not friendly, are they? The next piece involves the original remote viewer Ingo Swann's 1998 book, Penetration, The Question of Extraterrestrial and Human Telepathy, in which Swann tells of his involvement with a very secret government agency that asked him to remote view the dark side of the Earth's moon. Swann saw extensive buildings, roads, and human forms digging. Swann makes it very clear that our government is very much intimidated by these ETS. He says to the government agent, "They've somehow got you by the balls, haven't they? That's why you are resorting to psychic perceptions. They are not friendly, are they?" Swann also describes his encounter with a live alien in a Los Angeles supermarket and confirms that an ET civilization has been infiltrating the Earth in humanoid bodies. Swann's friends warn him. There are a lot of them, you know, and many of them are bio-androids. They realize that Earth psychics are their only enemies. From this we get the idea that there are factions in our secret government who are in fact somehow gotten by the balls, as Swann so poetically phrases it. Over the years, I have heard that there are secret government projects rushing to develop weapons systems to defend Earth against invading ETS. As you know, the problem is what to believe. So back to what we know, which is geoengineering. Credible reports show that governments around the planet have been geoengineering for 60 years. Once again we have a technology that happens to correlate with the dates when UFO sightings began to increase. Coincidence? Genetic slavery and genocide. In 1999 another remote viewer, Courtney Brown, wrote in his book Cosmic Explorers, Scientific Remote Viewing, Extraterrestrials, and a Message for Mankind the following: "There is a war in space and beyond. This war has just now reached our borders. What is at stake is not the awakening of a foolish humanity that wants to keep its head buried in the sand, but a future of our children that is free from fear, imprisonment, and possibly genetic slavery or even genocide. We are entering a new stage in a long battle in which we must fight for the survival of our species. We are now living in an age that requires courage above all things. If fortune favors the bold, so must be our destiny." Why does Courtney Brown mention genetic slavery and even genocide? The evidence that geoengineering involves the spraying of toxic particulates, aka chemtrails containing aluminum, known to cause dementia and Alzheimer's, barium, a poison, strontium, and other nanoparticles could be seen as genocide from the sky, eugenics, or even omnicide. What are these corporations doing with our taxpayer dollars? Saving the planet or killing it, and us along with it? The corporate agenda and geoengineering. A great resource for learning about geoengineering is Dane Wigington's geoengineeringwatch.org. In a post from October 2014, entitled Climate Engineering, Dangerous Proposal or Lethal Reality, Dane Wigington says this: "Closer to home, don't overlook the still worsening drought decimating the western U.S. Is it yet another coincidence that Monsanto, the world's largest genetically modified seed company, has introduced its newest drought and aluminum-resistant corn in the midst of this unfolding disaster? The weather derivatives market trades stocks that are nothing more than bets on where weather catastrophes will strike, who such events will affect, what crops will be damaged, etc. Could this be the corporate/industrial/military complex manufacturing weather disasters and then making massive profits for corporations from the damage they have done? All indications point towards a new type of profit investment market, disaster capitalism. Who are the players that appear to be involved? The Raytheon Corporation is heavily involved in weather modification patents. Raytheon is believed to do all the weather modeling for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Association, NOAA, and the National Weather Service. Another player in this gamble on the future of our planet is the Lockheed-Martin Corporation, who is also heavily invested in the weather modification business and appears to do all the weather modeling for the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. Could the foxes be running the henhouse? Are they predicting weather at this point, or giving us the weather schedule? If this is the case, would they want to disclose this? Lockheed Martin again. Dane never talks about the ETS, he follows his own straight-ahead course, as he should. But I am a visionary who has seen over 30 UFOs and experienced 6 months of seeing the colonization of this planet from the perspective of the colonizing family, the Anunnaki. So for me, the hidden layer in the power pyramid is always these off-world entities and their advanced technologies. True, above them is God, the one pervading all, and in fact finding these technologies in the ancient Sanskrit text the Rig Veda is what got me back into the ET question. Weather Wars. Quoting again the courageous Dane Wigington from his article Rothschilds and the Geoengineering Empire. November 13, 2012. Why would the Rothschilds be so interested in owning the largest and most recognized weather modeling organization out there? Why would E.L. Rothschild LLC wish to have the controlling interest in the world's leading provider of interactive weather graphics and data services for television, web, and mobile? Because when you are involved in climate-decimating geoengineering programs, you must also control the forecast models to cover your tracks. The scope and scale of the global spraying of our skies can hardly be comprehended. SAG, Stratospheric Aerosol Geoengineering, and SRM, Solar Radiation Management, the massive web of supporting structures for these programs is mind-bending. What is even more difficult to understand is how all of this happens in plain sight, and almost none seem to connect the dots. Defense contractor Raytheon does all the forecast modeling for the National Weather Service and NOAA. Lockheed Martin does the modeling for the FAA. Since both of these private defense contractors are up to their necks in weather modification patents and programs, the forecasts are more or less the scheduled weather. Now, with the Rothschilds' acquisition of the dominant private modeling organization, the control of weather modeling seems complete. This control of forecasts and graphics provides for the constant visual conditioning that makes the population more likely to accept the constant spraying and manipulation of our weather as normal. The global elites have, it seems, covered all the bases. Again, Lockheed Martin with its colorful craft propulsion systems history comes up as a contributor to geoengineering through contracting to atmospheric and environmental research, air. Terraforming a dying planet. Remember Donald Rumsfeld, then Secretary of Defense, on September 10, 2001, in that ridiculous moment telling the Senate and the American public that we cannot track $2.3 trillion. Remember? A shocker. Online reports allege that the military cannot count for 25% of what it spends. Books are cooked routinely year after year. I suppose covering planet Earth with chemtrails gets expensive. Are they intentionally terraforming the planet, and if so, who, or should I say what benefits? A sobering post from Dane Wigington. Correcting the ecological damage that mankind has done has never been done before. We are relatively new to this notion of terraforming on a real scale. That is what we are doing, terraforming. We are trying to recreate the ideal life-sustaining conditions on a dying planet. We have never done this before, not intentionally. We are testing and trying different methods. Granted, if we do nothing, 89% of all species will go extinct, and humanity stands a high chance of not surviving through 2 more generations, or less. However, the idea of 2 billion casualties, death and permanent injury is not easy to swallow either. The gag order. In Dane Wigington's government implements illegal gag order on National Weather Service and NOAA employees, October 21, 2015. In recent weeks, Washington has placed gag orders on the following agency employees: the National Weather Service, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, the U.S. Department of Commerce. This is a massive red flag that should trigger alarm bells everywhere. Some time ago I personally spoke to a NOAA scientist that said, "We all know it is going on, climate engineering, but we are afraid to speak out, we have no First Amendment protection. The new gag order is a further muzzling of the NWS and NOAA. It is likely there are many in the National Weather Service and NOAA that have had enough of lying about what is really going on in our skies. The Washington Post recently reported that scientists and top officials from NOAA, the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, have been refusing to comply with a subpoena for emails from the chairman of the House, the committee that oversees NOAA, which is said to have obstructed and even attempted to shape and direct the committee's oversight role. What is NOAA hiding, and why do they feel entitled to do so? 60 years of geoengineering. Geoengineering has been going on for 60 years. How many years have you been seeing chemtrails in the sky above? Geoengineering is now being sold to us by the monopoly media as the new untried savior of our warming planet. Yes, the planet is warming. However, many scientists are now coming forward and saying that geoengineering is making the warming worse. Why are they terraforming our planet? We all need to become intelligently informed about chemtrails and their toxic effects so that we can understand the many deadly layers of geoengineering. Ilana Freeland's book, Chemtrails, HAARP, and the Full Spectrum Dominance of Planet Earth is an excellent user's manual. Here are a few of the toxic consequences of the metals we are breathing from Freeland's book. Aluminum. A neurotoxin, aluminum. Blocks nerve impulses, dulls thinking and concentration, can produce dizziness, memory loss, impaired coordination, involuntary tremors, speech disorders, loss of balance and energy. Airborne nanoaluminum slips up the olfactory neural tracts into the brain, passing through the brain-blood barrier and cells membranes to disrupt mitochondria. Can lead to dementia, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's and Lou Gehrig's diseases. 10 to 20 megatons per year of aerosolized aluminum will be sprayed into the atmosphere. Geoengineer David Keith. Along with barium, aluminum is one of the silent producers of global warming. Barium suppresses the immune system because it is rapidly absorbed through the gastrointestinal tracts and deposited in the muscles, lungs, and bone. Barium toxicity can cause difficulties in breathing, stomach and chest pains, increased blood pressure, heart arrhythmia, stomach irritation, brain swelling, muscle weakness and damage to liver, kidneys, heart, and spleen. Barium is 20 times worse than the worst organic chlorinated pesticide. Morgellons. The research on morgellons has been done by the courageous scientist Cliff Carnicom, who says, the morgellons condition may have a much broader basis and distribution than we might like to admit or know. Ilana Freeman explains his statement. In other words, in morgellons victims the filaments are in extremis, but the truth is that all populations subject to the chemtrails delivery system will probably experience at least a slow degradation of health as the immune system is undermined. The organism may be in everyone's blood. Carnicom found that the blood of his samples is undergoing a transformation, the cellular structure is changing to a more fibrous form, and spherical structures like those inside the fibers are appearing in disturbed blood cells. Ilana Freeland. All evidence has pointed to 4 major forms and 1 minor form of the genetically altered morgellons pathogen being delivered by aerosols, genetically modified foods, water systems, vaccinations and other inoculations. Cliff Carnicom admits that humanity is facing an imminent health holocaust. 2 vulnerable secrets. There are 2 secrets the evil cabal is terrified that the public will come to know. The aerosol spraying of toxic particulates from the sky. The presence and infiltration of the tyrant-based ETS within our planetary industrial military complex. They know that if aerosol spraying is moved from a conspiracy theory to a reality, people will begin to realize that their own governments are dropping toxic particulates on them from the sky, aluminum, barium, strontium, and nanofibers that harm our immune system, and interfere with our memory and brain patterns. Perhaps worse for them, but certainly in tandem with geoengineering, is the transference of technology that has occurred since the 1950s from these rootzoid ETS who have given the military an inferior technology with which the human armed forces can never hope to defeat them. Are our own governments and branches of military trapped as much as we are? It has been said that the reason for the secrecy is military and corporate secrets, national security, and a fear of lawsuits, a legal Armageddon. But we may ask where the mountains of secrecy have left us, and what were the real intentions. A Trojan horse. The American Indians long ago said that the good ETS, the more evolved group, came to our leaders and offered to help us advance, if we would only give up our experimenting with nuclear energy. The World War II detonations we had already set off were causing reverberations throughout the solar system and beyond, reverberations that we didn't understand because our knowledge of the inner workings of cosmos is so very primitive. But no. Our leaders were afraid to give up their nuclear toys, which they felt were their only defense against civilizations so very advanced beyond ours. Then other less benevolent groups of ETS approached our world leaders with promises of technologies and no need to give up nuclear power and weapons. All they wanted in return was a few abductions, so they could study us as a species in the vast universe full of a variety of species. But the technology they gave us was a Trojan horse of toxic effects that spread its poisons all over the planet, till we are now at the breaking point with the biosphere collapsing and methane release threatening. And as for the abductions, they kept increasing as samples of our blood and endocrine glands made it possible for the ETS to create hybrids that looked like us, and could infiltrate the corporations, government, and our communities, and our blood cells could be altered and degraded, thereby changing our DNA to render us malleable, subservient, and sick. You can understand why so much money and media energy has been focused on keeping these two facts, the chemtrails and the ET presence, from the public. Is geoengineering an all-out assault on the Earth to render the population passive, in a pervasive state of fear while our immune system and our ability to resist is further broken down? The human species nullified. In a chapter entitled Special Forces, Part 2, Chapter 18, Timothy Good quotes a former U.S. Air Force computer operations and programming specialist, William J. Pollack. What concerns me is when these projects go beyond black, people with ulterior motives that have gotten control of these projects and or the funding for them, and or the ability of what really is scary, to write their own unlimited checks with no recourse to anybody. The attitude is seemingly one of control, power and control. My concerns are for the freedom of our country, and of the free world. If we don't find ways to neutralize these negative forces, we're going to find our lifestyles, our concepts of life as a species, nullified. Why would Pollack talk about us as a species and consider that our concepts of life as the human species will be nullified? Surely this kind of language can only suggest that some other type of species, not of the human race, that has very different concepts of life is threatening the human races on planet Earth. It is not too late. Not all of the extraterrestrial races have such malevolent intentions toward the inhabitants of Earth. It is true that this planet is a colony, one of countless others across a universe with billions of galaxies and civilizations at every possible level of development. If the human race can wake up now and realize this truth, accepting the idea that we are not the only beings in creation and that we are part of a greater woven universe, a living consciousness in which all forms and beings are sacred, if we can lift up our consciousness beyond fear and polarization that inevitably leads to endless wars, then it is not too late. The more evolved ETS will step in and help us throw off these tyrannical monsters that have usurped our freedom, destroying the cosmic harmony, purity, and perfection of our planet's original balance. It is not too late. Our future is solely in our hands. It has always been up to us to move out of our stupor, out of ignorance, and courageously move into higher states of the living consciousness, into enlightenment. Only then will we be allowed to participate in the intergalactic council. Only then will we be ready to join the rest of our galaxy as equal participants. Otherwise we face the horrors of devastating world wars that are already in play stealing upon us, and centuries of totalitarian domination, a hideous form of technologically controlled globalization, a new world order that promises to reduce and subdue Earth's population into abject servitude for the very few. In fact, such a fate often occurs on planets that are not ready to take responsibility for their own actions. Responsibility, the well-being of others. Responsibility for their planet itself. It's up to us. We have to decide as individuals. Living consciousness. The universe is a living consciousness. It is through raising our own individual consciousness and by psychic osmosis, spreading truth far and wide out across the planet, transmitting the realization that we are one with the woven fabric of that living consciousness. We are facing the most dire moment of our lives and greatest challenge in all of written human history. This is not about race or religion. What we face now is the redemption of the entire planet, her peoples, the oceans, our land, and the very air we breathe. Now is the time for us to gather all our courage and go within to connect with the living consciousness, that which we are and have always been. As enlightened beings, we will spontaneously find precisely what is required in every moment. I for one have found an adamantine faith in the living consciousness within me, and therefore I have unlimited faith in humankind, the God within all. We continue to work on our own consciousness and prepare for the battle of our lives, a battle that will take place not with space-age weapons, but the real battle, the war on consciousness. It is time to wake up, to remember who we are, and come home. Planet Earth can heal herself, and I now have visions that we will emerge purified. Once again the birds will sing in the light of truth, and there will be a golden era future for our children. I pray for the children.